Welcome in, Fansided. I am Mark Carmen, joined by kind of the man of the hour, the 30 for 30. If you've missed it, I hate Christian Laettner. You aren't living in the world. Basically, everyone has watched it. Christian is with me today. And Christian, I got to be honest. I grew up in the Midwest. I went to the University of Iowa. I didn't like the Fab Five, and I didn't like Duke. So I really didn't know where I should be in the whole scenario. I just kind of watched it, and this is a tough thing for me to remember that time period.
Well, it's odd that you didn't like Michigan and you didn't like Duke at the same time. So you were maybe pulling for the Hawkeyes. That's fine. That's good. That's good of you. It means you're loyal. And I was on the University of Iowa one time. We practiced there for one of the national summer teams with Team Patey. I think we were at Iowa, practicing at Iowa one summer.
And Christian Laettner doing great work with Buffalo Wild Wings. We'll get into that. But so you watched the documentary yourself. What were your emotions seeing, all that time, all that history, and so many really intense moments? When you watched it back, what went through you?
Well, when Sellers was bouncing my head off the floor, some pain went through my mind then. And then when I stepped on Timberlake's chest, some stupidity went through my mind. And then besides that, everything else was pride and wonderful memories and great feelings and things that I'll never forget and things that when I die and my life flashes before my eyes, I'll see some of those same scenes that were in that movie.
So you apologized to Aminu Timberlake for stepping on him. Now, if you and I'm not one to really be, I tend to judge every now and then, but in that instance, yeah, you were wrong, but you didn't really step on him. You just kind of stepped on him. You know what I mean?
No, it wasn't really a hard step to cause any harm. It was a little more of like what I used to do to my other Duke teammates, which was, slap them in the back of the head, wrestle with them a little bit, but never really hurt them or get into a full-fledged fight. It was just, like a dog barking at another dog, but they don't get in a fight. And, you're out there on the basketball court, you're fighting for everything out there. Every step, catch, pass, dribble, shot, rebound, block, steal, everything you're fighting for. And it was just a split-second mistake on my part, but you can live a long time to regret it, and that's a play that I made on the basketball court that I definitely regret.
Have you gotten an apology from Mr. Sellers?
I have not gotten an apology from Mr. Sellers, and I do not need one. I don't want one. I will never ask for one. That's just part of the game. Even though he crossed the line and gave me a few good shots there, it didn't hurt. I didn't even really feel it. I just knew that something offensive had happened.
Right.
And I wasn't really even sure what happened until I saw it on the replay maybe later that night. But I don't need an apology because that's sports. Sometimes things like that happen in sports. And as long as it doesn't turn into a fist fight or a brawl, I think it's just something you have to accept if you get in the sporting world.
Christian Laettner doing great work with Buffalo Wild Wings. We'll get into the NCAA tournament in a second here, but let me touch on Bobby Hurley. I didn't realize that relationship was anywhere close to what at least the film portrays. Did you want to get him in an angry state because you thought he played best when he was mad?
Definitely, for sure. I think all of us at Duke, every one of us who was on the team at those years that I was there, we all played better when we were mad and when we were pissed off. And sometimes Coach K would push our buttons to piss us off, to make us play at the highest level. Sometimes he would ask us to do it to each other. And I know I played when I was mad better. I know Bobby played better when he was mad, and the same was true for Grant Hill and Thomas Hill and Brian Davis and Antonio Lang and Cherokee Park. And we all played better when we were a little pissed because, like I told you, everything is about fighting out there. You have to fight for everything. And we were trying to win. We were not trying to lose any games. So we were always out there being very intense and ultra competitive.
Brian Davis was your guy, huh?
He was one of my buddies. He was my roommate for a few years, but I was super close with a lot of other guys on that team.
Christian Laettner with us here, Fan Sided, as we're talking about the NCAA tournament, of course, the 30 for 30 as well. All right, so Buffalo Wild Wings and you are joined up here around the tournament. First of all, are you able to pick Kentucky, or are you sticking with home base? Because I've got Duke and Kentucky in the final. Where are you at?
Well, that's exactly where I am. I'm able to pick Kentucky to a certain degree, so I got them and Wisconsin and Duke and Virginia in the Final Four. But then loyalty is always going to prevail over that. So I got Duke beating Kentucky and Duke winning the championship, and hopefully that'll happen.
How good do you see Jahlil Okafor being on the next level?
You know, Jahlil is either going to average... well, let me rephrase that. Okafor will either get double-teamed for the rest of his life, or he's going to average 26 and 10, because that's how good of a player he is, and that's how good I think he will be in the NBA, is he just needs to be double-teamed because he's so good, and if they don't, he's going to be a monster in the league and average a lot of points and a lot of rebounds because he's very big, strong, and talented and gifted and skilled, and when you're all those things, it's hard to stop you.
Buffalo Wild Wings, by the way, coming alive during March Madness. You can stay close to the action through the tournament using the B-Dubs tournament tracker. You got that on your phone, Christian? You all dialed in? Are you a technological wizard, so to speak?
I'm all dialed in. I'm not saying I'm a technological wizard, but if I ask my children to help me a little bit, they can get me all set up and caught up to speed. So they've been helping me with all the apps and all the tournament tracker things, so I'm all set to go.
That's awesome. Hey, one question on the Dream Team. The way the 30 for 30 portrays it, some guys were nice to you, some weren't. Who were some of the guys who maybe took you under their wing? Hey, Christian, you're a little young to be here, and you haven't done quite as much as us, but hey, we welcome you.
Well, first of all, I hope people realize that when movies are made and you're interviewed for a long time, that sometimes they edit it and cut it right when you wish they would let it roll because you said something very important. But, there are editing techniques that are used, and while I said 6 people were really nice to me and 6 people were a little coldish, the rest of my sentence was, but after the first 1 or 2 practices, once they realized that I could take an elbow to the chin and I wasn't going to quit and I wasn't going to back down or cry, they all were nice to me after the first 1 or 2 practices. So I would just like to reiterate, they were all awesome to me after the first 1 or 2 practices. But the people I hung out with the most and the people that you could say that put me under their wing a little bit was Chris Mullin and Charles Barkley. They were very cool to me when I was on the Dream Team.
Barkley's an interesting guy, huh? Any stories around that? Because I'm hanging with Charles. You're just into the league. That had to have been quite a moment.
It was, and he's very refreshing to be around because he just says what he thinks and he doesn't worry about some of the repercussions of it. So he's very honest and very real, and I really appreciated that about him. And one thing I loved about Barkley, in 1988, before I was even in college or near the Dream Team, was he was saying stuff like, athletes, don't have to be everyone's hero. And I really appreciated that in 1988 when I heard him say it. And then if you notice, my mother said the same exact thing when, in the 30 for 30 movie. Your parents and your teachers and your coaches and your those people in your life, they should be your hero, not some athlete that you're watching from states away or hours away. It should be your parents and your teachers and your coaches.
There's no doubt. Are people reacting to you differently after the documentary? Have you become maybe a more likable Christian Laettner?
It hasn't changed too much in that regard in terms of how people are reacting to me since Sunday. And all I can hope for is that, they give me the benefit of the doubt and that people say to themselves, well, I'm not going to judge a book by the cover. I'm not going to judge the kid or any other person until I walk in his shoes or hang around with him for a few days. So I've been challenging people to take me snowboarding with them and take me muskie fishing with them and then let me know how you feel about me.
See, now that's awesome. one of the most intense parts, and we'll let you go, Christian. I know you got more stuff to do here, but the LSU portion, and they're firing homophobic slurs at you, and I mean, first of all, it's no one's business what anyone's doing. Second of all, I mean, you're a married guy, you got 3 kids. Looking back on that, was that kind of raw going back into that moment?
It wasn't raw going back to it because it's not something that really hurts you that much. You know, if a very close friend or someone that I have in my support group, like my coaches, my teachers, my parents, if they said those phrases, then it might be a little more hurtful. But when it's coming from fans of opposing teams that you're trying to beat, there's really nothing that they can say to hurt you if you're using your head, because you know they're doing it just to try to beat you or to try to make you not beat their team. So that just has to be something that rolls off your back, and you can't worry about it too much. So that's what I did with it.
Fair enough. Were you a big Bill Laimbeer fan?
I was not.
But maybe respected the way he went about his business as far as getting under people's skins?
No, I didn't. I wasn't a huge fan of his. I didn't respect it a lot when I was younger. And I never wanted to be viewed like that. But sometimes if you're a big, tall, white guy who's really competitive, you know, maybe that perception gets thrown around. So now as I got older, 23, 24, and I was in the NBA, and I started to realize what it's all about, and I started to realize how hard it is to win at the NBA level, then I started to respect him, and I didn't mind when people said things like that.
Interesting. All right, last one. Real poignant moment when you talked about how you'll miss playing for Coach K more than you'll miss playing for Duke. That connection, just speak to how, you know, it developed and what Coach K did to really, you know, enter your heart.
Well, I really connected with him in the 85-86 season when I started to love Duke and pay attention to them with the Johnny Dawkins and Mark Allery teams. And from judging him from afar, I just thought, like, man, I would love to play for that guy. So I got to know him. He recruited me. He seemed even better and better in real person. He seemed even better and better the more I got to know him. So I agreed to play for him and to accept the scholarship to Duke University. And then once you're in his program, he does such a good job at making you feel like you're loved, making you feel like you're important, that you're part of his family. But then at the same time, he's very, very good at holding you accountable, putting high expectations on you, and doing all those things to you. And man, when the guy talks to you in the locker room, you feel like running through a brick wall for the guy. So he was just the best to play for, and I still stay in touch with him and talk to him a few times every year. I used to go to his fantasy camp, and he's just awesome to be around. And if anyone has a chance to go see him speak at a company or an event or as a motivational speaker, you got to try it because the guy's just awesome.
Christian Laettner doing great work with Buffalo Wild Wings. March Madness coming alive. Follow their tournament, the B-Dubs tournament tracker. Hey, Christian, it was great to talk to you today. We really appreciate the time.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.